The moment Kola stepped into the forest, he realized the stories weren't just myths, they were warnings. The dense trees loomed overhead, their gnarled branches casting twisted shadows on the ground. With every step he took, the air grew heavier, thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. He had heard the tales from the townsfolk, the missing children, the strange whispers in the night, but Kola was determined to carve his own path. "Are you sure about this?" Kola asked, glancing sideways at Benga, who walked confidently beside him. The older boy was a local legend in his own right, known for his charisma and charm, effortlessly drawing the attention of those around him. Today, though, Kola could see a flicker of something else in Benga's eyes, a hunger for adventure, perhaps, or something darker. "Come on, Kola. It's just a forest. What's the worst that could happen?" Benga replied with a carefree laugh, the sound echoing through the trees. But Kola felt a knot tighten in his stomach as they ventured deeper, leaving the safety of the village behind. "I heard the forest is cursed," Kola said, trying to mask the tremor in his voice. "People have disappeared without a trace." "Those are just stories to scare children," Benga said dismissively. "We are not children, are we?" He grinned, nudging Kola with his shoulder. Kola wanted to believe him, but the tales still clung to his mind like cobwebs. Each whispered warning from Uncle Femi echoed in his ears. "Stay away from the forest after dark, Kola. There are things in there that can't be explained." But Kola craved excitement. Ever since his father's death, life had felt dull and colorless. Moving to ibeju was meant to be a fresh start, but the town felt suffocating with its unspoken rules and ghostly memories. Kola longed for something different, something that would break the monotony. "Look!" Benga suddenly shouted, breaking Kola from his thoughts. He pointed toward an ancient tree that stood alone in a small clearing. Its trunk was massive, and its twisted roots sprawled across the ground like the fingers of a sleeping giant. The tree had a strange allure, its bark glistening in the fading sunlight. "What is it?" Kola asked, feeling a pull toward the tree despite the warnings echoing in his head. "This is the tree of whispers," Benga announced with a flourish. "They say it can hear the secrets of the forest." Kola stepped closer, his heart racing. The air was charged, and he could almost hear a low hum vibrating through the ground. "What secrets?" "Only those who listen carefully can hear," Benga replied, an enigmatic smile spreading across his face. "It's said that the forest chooses those who are worthy." As Kola reached out to touch the rough bark, a whisper cut through the stillness. "Kola," it called softly, wrapping around him like a gentle breeze. He froze, his heart racing. "Did you hear that?" he asked, a tremor of fear creeping into his voice. "Hear what?" Benga turned, his expression puzzled. "I thought I heard someone calling me," Kola said, stepping back from the tree. "Relax, it's just your imagination." Benga laughed, but Kola could feel the unease settling into his bones. "Maybe we should go back," Kola suggested, glancing around the dimming forest. Shadows stretched longer, and the air felt thick with something unnameable. "Where's your sense of adventure?" Benga chided playfully. "This is just the beginning." Kola hesitated but followed Benga as they continued their exploration. The further they ventured, the more the forest seemed to close in around them. The vibrant colors of the village faded into a muted palette, and Kola felt the weight of the trees bearing down on him. That night, Kola lay in bed, tossing and turning. The whisper haunted him, a soft, persistent sound echoing in his mind. As he drifted into a restless sleep, he dreamed of the forest. In his dream, he stood beneath a tree of whispers, its branches swaying gently as if beckoning him closer. "Kola," it called again, urging him to step forward. Kola awoke with a start, sweat clinging to his skin. He glanced at the window, where the moonlight cast eerie shadows across the room. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for him out there. The following days passed in a blur of tension and unease. Kola struggled to focus in class, his mind consumed by thoughts of the forest and the haunting whispers. Rumors of missing villagers swirled around Ibeju like a storm, each new disappearance adding to the weight of fear that hung over the town. Kola's heart raced every time he passed the forest edge, drawn by an insatiable curiosity that battled against the warnings of his uncle. One afternoon, as Kola helped Uncle Femi restock the shelves in their small shop, the familiar sounds of village life were punctuated by anxious murmurs outside. Kola's ears perked up as he overheard snippets of conversation. "It's been 2 weeks since the girl vanished. They say she went into the forest," a woman lamented. "It's the forest. It takes what it wants," another voice chimed in, filled with dread. Kola's stomach twisted. He felt a growing urgency to understand what was happening. He turned to his uncle, who was arranging goods behind the counter. "Uncle Femi, why do people go missing in the forest?" Kola asked, his voice steady but filled with anxiety. Uncle Femi paused, a shadow passing over his face. "It's best not to speak of it, Kola. The forest is a dangerous place, full of spirits and magic that we do not understand. There are old traditions that protect our village, but they come at a price." "What price?" Kola pressed, feeling a mixture of fear and curiosity. "The forest demands sacrifices, Kola. It keeps the village safe, but the price is steep. People have lost their lives in the name of those sacrifices," Uncle Femi explained, his voice grave. Kola's heart raced at his uncle's words. The story suddenly felt all too real. He thought of Benga's eagerness to explore the forest and how he had brushed aside Kola's fears. The idea that a price was being paid in blood made Kola's skin crawl. Later that evening, Kola met with Benga by the forest edge. The atmosphere was tense, shadows flickering in the fading light. "Did you hear about the girl who went missing?" Kola asked, urgency lacing his tone. "Yeah, everyone's talking about it," Benga said, dismissing it with a wave. "But that's not going to stop us. The forest has secrets that need to be uncovered." "Secrets? Or danger?" Kola shot back. "What if it demands more sacrifices? What if we're next?" "Don't be ridiculous. The forest is powerful, yes, but it's also an opportunity. We could gain so much if we just embrace it." Benga's eyes sparkled with excitement, but Kola could see a flicker of something else beneath the surface, an eagerness tinged with desperation. Kola felt the pull of the forest again, an alluring call that tugged at his instincts. "I'm not sure this is a good idea anymore," Kola admitted, taking a step back. "Are you really going to let fear control you? We could be legends, Kola. We could be part of something greater," Benga urged, his voice rising with fervor. Kola's heart pounded as he considered Benga's words. He wanted to be brave, to escape the dullness of everyday life. Yet the stories weighed heavily on him, each missing person a reminder of what lay beyond the edge of safety. As night fell, the boys made their way into the forest, the shadows swallowing them whole. They navigated through the dense underbrush, following a familiar path until they reached the clearing. The tree of whispers stood tall and imposing, illuminated by the pale glow of the moon. "Look," Benga said, excitement bubbling in his voice. "We're going to make our mark on history tonight." "What do you mean?" Kola asked, unease gnawing at his insides. "I found an old book that talks about a pact with the forest. Those who offer themselves gain power, wealth, protection, anything they desire," Benga explained, his expression fierce. "Offer ourselves? Are you insane?" Kola exclaimed, horror washing over him. "You want to make a sacrifice? That's not something to joke about. Relax. It's just a tradition. We'll offer something small, something symbolic. It's about the forest recognizing us, understanding our intentions," Benga reassured him, but Kola could see the determination in his eyes. Before Kola could respond, Benga knelt before the tree, pulling out a small knife. "I'll show you. Just a drop of blood, nothing more." "Kola, don't," Meawa's voice pierced the night as she emerged from the shadows, her face pale with fear. "You shouldn't do this." Kola's heart sank. "Meawa, what are you doing here?" "I followed you. I had to stop you before you made a terrible mistake," Meawa said, her voice urgent. "This isn't a game, Benga. You can't just toy with the forest like this. Stay out of this, Meawa." "You don't understand," Benga spat, his eyes flashing. "What I understand is that this forest is dangerous. People have gone missing after making pacts," Meawa insisted, her gaze locked on Kola. "You can't trust him, Kola. Please, let's leave." Kola felt the tension in the air thicken, a storm brewing between them. He looked at Benga, who was still kneeling, knife poised above his palm. "Benga, this isn't right. Stop trying to control me, Kola. I'll do what I want." Benga shouted, frustration boiling over. "Then you're a fool," Meawa shot back. "You're going to regret this." Kola felt torn, caught between the allure of adventure and the reality of danger. The tree of whispers loomed above them, its presence suffocating. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, the ground trembled beneath their feet, and the tree seemed to shudder in response. "Look," Meawa pointed at the tree. "It's reacting to your anger." Before Kola could process her words, the whispers returned, echoing through the clearing, wrapping around them like a shroud. "Kola," they called again, a haunting refrain that sent chills down his spine. "Stop it. I can't take this." Kola shouted, feeling the weight of the forest closing in. He stepped back, instinctively distancing himself from the tree. Benga stood frozen, his expression shifting from determination to fear. "What's happening?" he stammered, lowering the knife. "Let's go. Now." Kola urged, grabbing Meawa's hand and pulling her away from the tree. The whispers grew louder, an angry chorus echoing through the night, demanding something they weren't willing to give. As they fled the clearing, Kola could feel the forest eyes upon them, watching, waiting. The darkness was alive, and it would not let them go easily. Kola, Meawa, and Benga ran through the forest, the whispers following them like a vengeful spirit. The trees seemed to close in around them, their branches swaying violently in the night breeze, as if trying to trap them within their grasp. Kola's heart pounded in his chest, a frantic rhythm that matched the thundering of his footsteps against the forest floor. "What was that?" Meawa gasped, glancing back at the clearing. "Did you hear it calling your name?" "I don't want to hear anything," Kola shouted, adrenaline surging through him. "We need to get out of here." Benga, still shaken, finally dropped the knife. "I didn't mean for it to." "Of course you didn't," Meawa interrupted, her voice rising with fear. "You didn't think at all. We could have been." "Enough," Kola snapped, halting them both. They stood on a narrow path, the trees looming ominously on either side. "We need to figure out what to do next. We can't just run blindly into the dark." Meawa nodded, her expression serious. "We should go back to the village and warn the others. They need to know what's happening in the forest." Benga shook his head, frustration creeping back into his voice. "And tell them what?" "That we were scared by a few whispers. They won't believe us. We need to understand the forest better, it's the only way we can protect ourselves." Kola looked between them, feeling the weight of their different opinions. He knew Meawa was right, the villagers needed to know about the dangers lurking in the woods. But a part of him was intrigued by Benga's words, a reckless desire to delve deeper into the forest mysteries. "Let's split up," Kola proposed, trying to find a compromise. Meawa, You go back to the village and gather the elders. Tell them what we experienced. Benga and I will investigate further. Maybe there's something we can find out that can help. Meawa's eyes widened in disbelief. Are you out of your mind? You want to go back into that forest? After what just happened? We can't let fear control us. We need answers, Kola insisted. If we work together, we might uncover the truth. With a reluctant sigh, Meawa relented. Fine. But you two be careful. I'll be back with the elders. Promise me you'll stay together. Promise, Kola said, hoping to reassure her. As Meawa turned and dashed back toward the village, Kola felt a knot of anxiety twist in his stomach. He and Benga were alone now, standing on the precipice of an unknown danger. Let's head back to the clearing, Benga suggested, determination returning to his voice. We need to confront the tree again. It holds the answers. Kola hesitated, but the allure of the forest called to him once more. Okay, but we have to be careful. We can't let the whispers distract us. They made their way back to the clearing, the air thick with tension. The shadows stretched longer, and the moon cast an eerie glow on the ancient tree. As they approached, Kola felt the air shift, the whispers growing louder, more insistent. Are you ready? Benga asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Let's just be quick, Kola replied, steeling himself as they stepped into the clearing. The tree of whispers loomed before them, its bark shimmering under the moonlight. Kola felt the same pull he had before, a magnetic force that urged him closer. I can hear it, Benga said, his eyes wide with awe. It wants us to listen. What do we ask it? Kola questioned, a knot of apprehension tightening in his stomach. Just speak your truth, Benga encouraged. Tell it why we're here. Kola took a deep breath, stepping closer to the tree. We want to understand the forest. We want to know why people are missing, and what the pact means, he declared, his voice steady despite the fear thrumming through him. The air around them crackled with energy, the whisper shifting into a chorus of voices, rising and falling like a haunting melody. Kola! Kola! Kola, they echoed, the sound wrapping around him, filling his mind with images of lost villagers, their faces twisted in fear. Suddenly, a flash of light erupted from the tree, illuminating the clearing. Kola stumbled back, shielding his eyes. When he opened them again, the tree had transformed. Its back was now shimmering silver, and ghostly figures began to materialize around it, people who had disappeared from the village, their expressions vacant and sorrowful. Help us, one of the figures cried, reaching out toward Kola and Benga. The forest demands a price, and we are its payment. Kola's heart raced as he took a step back, fear flooding his veins. What do you want from us? He shouted, desperation rising in his voice. The pact must be fulfilled, another figure intoned, their voice echoing with a haunting resonance. Feed the forest, and it will protect your village. Refuse, and the cycle will continue. Benga's face was a mask of shock, his bravado evaporating in the face of the haunting apparitions. This isn't happening, he whispered, trembling. Kola's mind raced as he processed their words. What do you mean, fulfill the pact? What price must we pay? The forest thrives on blood and fear. It hungers for more, the first figure replied, there is dark pools of despair. The only way to break the curse is to make a sacrifice, but it can no longer be us. Kola felt the weight of their words settle heavily in his chest. He was trapped between fear and the desperate need to save his village. What if we refuse? Kola asked, his voice shaking. Then the forest will come for you, and the cycle will continue, the last figure warned, their expression filled with sorrow. You must make a choice. Suddenly, the figures began to fade, the whispers turning into a cacophony of anguished cries. Feed us, they echoed, a chilling reminder of the lives lost to the forest hunger. Kola turned to Benga, panic rising in his chest. We have to get out of here. Wait. What if we can find a way to break the pact? Benga urged, desperation creeping into his voice. There has to be a way to save them. Kola shook his head, feeling the forest closing in around them. I don't want to be part of this. We need to warn Meawa and the villagers. As they stumbled back through the underbrush, the whispers pursued them, relentless and hungry. Kola could feel the forest watching, waiting for their next move. They burst through the trees, the moonlight spilling onto the path leading back to the village. We can't let it take anyone else, Kola panted, glancing over his shoulder. The shadows seemed to shift and right, as if the forest were alive, hungry for their fear. Then we must act quickly, Benga replied, urgency flooding his voice. We need to gather everyone and confront the elders. They must know what we've seen. As they raced back to the village, Kola felt the weight of the whispers behind him, an insatiable hunger that would not be sated until its price was paid. He was determined to break the cycle, even if it meant facing the darkest truths of the forest. The village lay quiet under the blanket of night, but Kola's heart raced with urgency as he and Benga sprinted toward the central square. They needed the elders to understand the truth about the forest, to confront the darkness that had taken so much from them. Where do we even start? Benga panted, glancing nervously over his shoulder as if he expected the forest to follow them into the village. The elders' council meets in the town hall, Kola replied, determination surging through him. We need to get there before anyone else goes missing. As they approached the town hall, the flickering lamplight illuminated the faces of a few villagers gathered outside. Kola spotted Meawa, her eyes wide with concern. You too. Thank the spirits you're back, she exclaimed, rushing toward them. What happened in the forest? We saw them, people who went missing. Kola replied breathlessly, the weight of their encounter heavy on his shoulders. The forest is alive, and it's demanding sacrifices. Meawa's face paled. I knew it. We need to tell the elders. Let's go. Benga urged, leading the way inside. The air in the hall was thick with tension, the elders seated around a long wooden table, their expressions grave. Kola could feel their eyes bore into him, a mix of scrutiny and skepticism. Elder Adibeo, the oldest of the council, stood and leaned heavily on his cane. What brings you here at this hour, boys? You should be resting. Kola took a deep breath, adrenaline coursing through him. We have to talk about the forest. People are disappearing, and it's because of a pact made long ago. We need to confront this evil before it claims more lives. The elders exchanged worried glances, and Kola could see the fear lurking behind their stoic faces. Elder Adibeo raised an eyebrow. And what do you know of this pact? Kola stepped forward, urgency propelling his words. We encountered spirits in the forest. They warned us that the forest demands sacrifices to protect the village, and that more lives would be lost if we don't act. The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging heavily in the air. We need to gather the villagers and confront the forest before it's too late, Kola insisted. Elder Adibeo's expression hardened. You speak of things that the villagers are not ready to face. We have kept a pact for generations. It is a tradition. Tradition or not, people are suffering, Meawa interrupted, her voice strong. We can't ignore the truth any longer. Elder Adibeo frowned, his gaze shifting to the other elders. Kola could sense their hesitation, their fear of the unknown weighing on their decisions. Enough, another elder exclaimed, slamming his palm on the table. If what these boys say is true, then we must act. We can't let fear dictate our actions any longer. Then let's gather the villagers. Kola urged, hope igniting within him. As they rushed outside, Kola's heart raced. The townspeople gathered, murmurs of confusion rippling through the crowd. Listen. Kola called, raising his hands to silence them. We've uncovered the truth about the forest. It demands sacrifices, and we can't allow it to take any more lives. Gasps filled the air, fear etched on every face. You think you can just march into the forest and demand answers? Someone shouted. Kola took a step forward, courage flooding through him. If we don't confront the darkness, we'll all be lost. We need to work together, to break the cycle. The villagers whispered among themselves, uncertainty hanging in the air. Finally, Elder Adibio stepped forward. If what the boys say is true, then we must face the forest together. We cannot allow this pact to continue. As night fell, the villagers, armed with torches and resolve, marched toward the forest. Kola felt a sense of unity among them, a collective determination to confront the darkness that had haunted their lives for far too long. When they reached the clearing, the tree of whispers loomed ominously before them, its branches twisting in the moonlight. The whispers rose once more, filling the air with an unsettling chorus. Stay together. Kola urged, his voice steady. We are stronger as one. The villagers formed a circle around the tree, fear mixed with determination evident on their faces. Kola stepped forward, raising his torch high. We refuse to be part of this pact any longer. We will no longer feed the forest with our fears or our lives. The wind howled through the clearing, and the tree shuddered as if responding to Kola's declaration. The whispers grew louder, transforming into an angry roar. Shadows danced around them, and Kola felt the ground tremble beneath his feet. Suddenly, figures began to emerge from the shadows, ghostly apparitions of the missing villagers, their faces twisted in anguish. Help us. Break the cycle, they cried, their voices echoing through the clearing. Kola's heart ached as he met their hollow gazes. We are here to set you free, he shouted, rallying the villagers. Together, we can break the forest hold over us. As the villagers joined him, their voices rose in unison, a powerful chant that reverberated through the trees. We will not be silent. We will not be afraid. The wind howled violently, the ground shaking as the forest fought back. But the villagers stood firm, their collective will igniting a fire of courage that blazed against the encroaching darkness. In that moment, Kola felt a surge of energy flow through him, a connection to the very spirit of the forest itself. We reject the pact, he cried. We choose life over sacrifice. We will honor the memories of those lost without feeding the darkness. The tree shuddered violently, the whispers turning into a deafening roar. The apparitions of the missing villagers shimmered, their expressions shifting from despair to hope. As the villagers continued to chant, the energy pulsing from them began to push back against the shadows. With a final, thunderous crash, the tree of whispers split open, releasing a blinding light that engulfed the clearing. The spirits of the missing villagers surged forward, their faces filled with gratitude. Thank you, they cried, their voices rising in a harmonious chorus. As the light faded, the shadows retreated, and the forest fell silent. The villagers stood breathless, staring in awe at the now tranquil clearing. Kola felt tears of relief streaming down his face as he turned to look at his friends. We did it, he whispered, disbelief washing over him. But as the villagers began to cheer, a lingering sense of foreboding hung in the air. Kola could feel the forest's watchful gaze, a reminder that the cycle of sacrifice could be broken, but the darkness would always lurk, waiting for another opportunity to reclaim its power. Let's go home, Kola said, looking at Meawa and Benga. We need to rebuild our village and remember those we lost. As they turned to leave, Kola glanced back at the forest one last time. He knew their victory was only the beginning, and though the forest had been silenced for now, its whispers would always remain, a reminder of the pact that could be reawakened if they ever forgot the price of fear. In the days that followed, the villagers of Ibeju began to heal. They shared stories of those who had vanished, honoring their memories with festivals of light and laughter. The darkness that had once threatened to engulf them now stood as a testament to their resilience. Kola, Meawa, and Benga emerged as leaders in the community, forging new paths of understanding and unity. They knew the forest would always be a part of their lives, but together, they would ensure it never claimed another soul. As the sun set behind the trees, Kola stood at the edge of the forest, watching the shadows stretch across the ground. He felt a sense of peace wash over him, knowing that they had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. But he also knew to remain vigilant. The forest held many secrets, and he would always remember the whispers that called his name, a reminder of the choices they had made and the power of unity that could overcome even the darkest of forces.
Please like and subscribe.